In recent decades, international news, and particularly news coverage in the West, has focused on the ongoing conflicts in the Middle East, as well as terrorist attacks and the rise of the violent Islamist group ISIS or Daesh. In early 2015, this group took responsibility for the attack on Charlie Hebdo, the satirical newspaper based in Paris. Later that year, Paris was attacked again, and around this time several other attacks occurred in places like Lebanon and Turkey. In November 2015, following the string of terrorist attacks, Nilufer, a Muslim Manitoban, felt she needed to speak up. Using her talents as a filmmaker, Nilufer, along with several other Muslim youth, created the short film Letter to a Terrorist. This is their story about resisting Islamophobia and building solidarity through cyberactivism.
2015, it just felt like a really stressful year for so many reasons. Here in Canada, of course, we had our federal election, during which time there was a lot of polarization or polarizing discourse, especially when it came to Muslims. And with the nature of the world today and how we communicate on social media, you can never really get away from that stress. And you feel guilty stepping away because you need to be a part of it. You can't just sort of turn off the TV and feel good. I needed to be able to do something concrete, and I thought, well, I'm a filmmaker. Maybe my role is to put something out in the world that will be able to contribute to the conversations that are happening and to help people connect emotionally, because I think that's such a powerful way of bridging gaps and spreading compassion in a world that is so divided, I think, today.
My name is Ayat Minena, and I was lucky enough to be in the film Letter to a Terrorist that Nilufer made. I also have experience with using social media as a tool for activism. In 2011, I co-founded Shabab Libya, a channel on Twitter that was used to report the uprising in Libya in 2011.
Cultural representation of Islam and Muslims within the West has been imbalanced, leading to grand narratives or stereotypes like, all Muslims are terrorists.
Whatever you want, but every Muslim is a terrorist.
It is rarely reported that Islam is seen by many as a philosophy and religion of love and peaceful cooperation. The way that Islam and Muslim people are represented in the media has impacted race relations globally and locally.
There is a mainstream, and there are narratives that are pushed out there constantly, and they don't necessarily always promote understanding. But it's definitely pushing us to kind of come forward and have more stories and more faces of regular, normal people, and to just give the rest of the world an idea of what is a Muslim, or what do these people look like, and what are their beliefs. And I think hopefully that they'll, at the end of the day, they ultimately come to the conclusion that these people are just like us.
As a Muslim for myself, it's hard to try and explain to people, acts that other so-called Muslims are doing in the world that are so violent and that really don't reflect at all what I've always learned as a Muslim growing up in the faith. I've always felt that religion and faith and Islam for me has been a source of comfort and has been, my moral compass. And for me, everything that I've gotten from it, I feel has been so positive, and it's helped me in the way I relate to people, in the way I relate to the earth. I feel that there's so much compassion in the teachings, and for me to see, and I think not just me, I know my fellow Muslims, people that I talk to, and what I see people talking about on social media, it's not what Islam means to them. I realize it's difficult to represent my whole community because it's so diverse. I've always known that since I was a kid, growing up in our little mosque in Winnipeg. Our community, like at that time, I think over 40 cultures were represented in our small mosque. Globally, Muslims are incredibly diverse. Everybody is coming from different experiences, different, languages, different histories. With that comes different interpretations of faith, different types of practice. I think it's tempting to view any kind of group as, black and white, like very polarized, but that's just not the reality. There's a spectrum within any faith group, within any cultural group or country or whatever. There's a spectrum, and each person within that is always changing.
The way that the film was made and how it ended kind of was on something very hopeful, and it was very serene, and the environment that it was filmed in. Also the fact that it was called A Letter to a Terrorist, it kind of puts everyone viewing it on the same side, because there are going to be very few people that would be on that, be a terrorist, that would perhaps share and watch this and identify with it. So it put everyone on the same page.
It's funny and ironic and miraculous how during these times of great tragedy, there's always something really, there's always so much compassion that seems to unfold after moments of tragedy. Past couple of years, I feel, it's just been hard on all of us emotionally, like on a global scale, right? So, I think there's just so much necessity for us to always hold each other's hand and keep walking forward. I just want to keep being able to tell positive stories, and how we can sort of move forward in this world together. And I know it sounds cliche, but just make the world a better place,
All Muslims are people, different people, just as all of us are. Social media provides a powerful opportunity for activism where we can share our diverse and changing identities to build understanding and solidarity in what Nilufer aptly described as a world so divided. At times like these, when hate and pain and suffering are so loud that it's deafening, we must raise our voices. Love will be louder.